Thank you, Joyce, and thank everyone for coming out to this very important briefing on public education. I see some other friends of education in the room from the Senate side and also the House side. If you are still here, could the legislators that are currently here please stand so you can be recognized, because these are our colleagues, these are friends of education, and certainly we will. My presentation is basically going to come up on the screen, and I want you all to know that MAE has in fact invested in creating this website, keeppublicschoolspublic.com. Please write that down, get the word out, and tell people to visit this website, keeppublicschoolspublic.com. It's a great resource for all of us in this room, and everything that you're going to see in my presentation will be found on this particular website, keeppublicschoolspublic.com. In Mississippi, like Cecil Brown said earlier, the legislature has actually funded MAEP, a formula, only twice in the history, in 2003 and 2007. Every other legislative session, the legislature has failed to fully fund public schools. Let's look at the impact of some of the budget cuts that we have experienced over the last 6 years. Let's say 2009 to present. We're talking about $1.3 billion in state budget cuts. Now this $1.3 billion that could have gone to the classroom to help reduce the size of our classroom, $1.3 billion that could have been used to update textbooks and technology, $1.3 billion, Representative Vaughn, as she mentioned, that could have been used for early childhood education, $1.3 billion that could have been used to create a well-rounded education for all of our children in Mississippi, including arts, the science, and other technology, other type courses to give our kids a well-rounded education. Now, let's talk about what we do know. We know that about 90% of Mississippi children attend public school. 90%. So if you have 90% of anything, it's just the right thing to do to invest in that. It's a great return on your investment. And so as a person who actually knows how to invest, I think it's a pretty good investment. If you have 90% of anything, you want to put your money there, because it's certainly a return on our investment to do so. Now, I know I'm actually speaking to the choir when I speak to you all in this room, but it's very important that we take this message out of this room, out of this capital, back into our communities, and more importantly, those individuals that come to this capital every year who fail to fully fund education. They need to hear from you. So let's talk about what $1.3 billion could have provided for our students. Over 5,000 teachers could have been placed in our classrooms. Every child could have had 21st century technology to open his or her world of learning. Let's look in detail at some of the districts. And what I plan to do in this presentation is to go from the coast and come all the way up to North Mississippi, so you all can see the effect of $1.3 billion in cuts to our children. Let's start with Ocean Springs. Ocean Springs has experienced a $13.5 million hit in state budget cuts. What would that have done for Ocean Springs? That would have created about 56 additional teachers in the classroom. And we know if you have additional teachers in the classroom, it reduces the size of the teacher to student ratio, and it enhances the learning for every child in that particular school district. Let's look at Gulfport for a minute. The Gulfport School District has experienced a $14.1 billion budget cut. That would have provided an additional 59 additional teachers for students in that particular district. Meridian has experienced $15 billion in budget cuts. And if they would have had that, that's about what, 62% slide when we talk about the technology that we could have actually created for that Greenville School District. What, over 23,000 iPads, 14,000 computers. And so not only are we not enhancing the educational experience, even right now with this wave of technology, we're not even providing our kids with up-to-date technology due to what we are doing here at this Capitol by failing to fund our public schools. Let's look at Greenwood. Greenwood has experienced $7.1 million, Dr. Green, in budget cuts. We failed to put $7.1 billion, in the Greenville Public School District. That would have created about 29 additional teachers, 10,000 or so iPads to enhance their educational experience. And then the school district where I'm from, Greenville, which I had the pleasure and the privilege to serve on the school board. And I remember where we actually had to do a reorganization, and we had lead teachers at the time. I know you all probably remember when we had lead teachers in the classroom. We had to basically do away with lead teachers and do away with assistant teachers, which was really, really bad, not only for the community, but more importantly, it was bad for the educational experience for our children in Greenville. And so it's really, really sad to say that Greenville had to experience a $16.2 million budget hit, and that would have created about 68 teachers in the classroom. Let's look at Tupelo for a minute. The Tupelo School District has experienced $17.8 billion in budget cuts. That would have provided 74 additional teachers in the classrooms. And like I've indicated with all of the school districts, they could have had additional technologies, additional iPads. Is DeSoto County on your country? So let's look at DeSoto County, because a lot of times when we actually we debate legislation here at this Capitol, whether you're on the House side or the Senate side, a lot of times we get a lot of support from the DeSoto County School District, because they, in fact, they support public education, and they need to know that they need to talk to some of their friends across the aisle to encourage fully funding our public schools. DeSoto County has experienced a $76 million hit, and that would have created $76 million. That would have created an additional 318 additional teachers in the DeSoto County School District. Now, let's go back home. And home is Jackson, right? And even though I'm from Greenville, Jackson is not really home, because you all know I'm from Greenville. But let's say home for all lawmakers is Jackson. It's where we have the state office of the Mississippi Department of Education. It's where we have MAE right here. So let's consider Jackson as home, because we come here for 90 days at the beginning of the year to do the right thing. And even though we attempt to do the right thing as friends of education, some people just don't want to do the right thing regarding public schools. So even right here at home in the Jackson Public School District, nearly $75 million has affected adversely that district, which would have been 311 teachers for the Jackson Public School District. I don't have to tell you that investing in classrooms, investing in our public education system will enhance the educational experience for our kids. It creates a great economic development for our communities. I mean, when you have good public schools, it does so much for the community. People don't want to actually get rid of their disposable income and try to help their children to go to private school. So it actually is a good return on your investment if you invest in public schools, because then children can go to public schools as opposed to people using their disposable income to send their kids to private schools. Fully funding public schools ensures that we live our legal and our moral obligation. It's just the law. We have failed to follow the law, except for those 2 years that I mentioned earlier, 2003 and 2007. Let's follow the law. Let's actually do everything we can to fulfill our moral obligation regarding public schools. And I leave you with one last thought. As a legislator, Your voices are important to me. Your voices are important to those legislators who stood up earlier, who are in fact friends of education. We hear you and we encourage you to call us anytime. We will stand in the trenches with you as we fight for fully funding our public schools. We ask you to continue to fight with us as we have a pay raise bill that is going through the legislative process. And it's not over until sound of battle. It's not over until we actually adjourn. So let's stay hopeful that we can get our colleagues across the aisle to join with us to fully fund our public schools. Thank you all so much for your time, and I'll stay around.